And last we left our heroes, they escaped imprisonment and impending execution at the hands of the war dogs. They fled through the crypts underneath Castle Blackstone, finding a hole in these crypts that led to tunnels deep into the mountains. Hey everyone, Adamar here with another campaign diary. Finally, we've played 3 sessions since the last video I put out, so we have a lot to catch up on. Let's get into it. In the second session of our campaign, we have to introduce a new player and character to the game. My buddy Zaul was playing a high elf troubadour by the name of Norma, and so he and I got together and used the fact that he was playing a troubadour to come up with a creative way to integrate that character into the party. What we came up with was a cutscene, first in which somewhere in the far future, there are some folks, some people talking amongst themselves about the legendary exploits of the party of this campaign. And there's some bickering and some back and forth about were there 4 members of the campaign, or were there 4 members of that party, or were there 5? And in fact, Zaul's character Norma makes an appearance and interrupts and says there were 5 and I was the 5th. It was this really kind of dramatic way of introducing the character. I think the players got really locked into it. They really enjoyed it. And yeah, deploying that cutscene to say, hey, this character was part of this campaign the whole time, or was part of the last session, I thought was really fun. So we picked up back in the present, where the players find themselves in a large cavern trying to figure out what to do next. They're all kind of trying to also get to know each other's characters and roleplay a little bit, but that's interrupted very quickly as they immediately realize that the other prisoner that's escaped with them that they helped, a commoner by the name of Hallstein, or Hall for short, has been kidnapped. They hear down one of the tunnels leading out of this cavern his cries for help, as it sounds like he's being taken away deeper and deeper down some tunnels away from them. So the party decides to jump into action and give chase to whatever it is that's taking Hall, and makes their way down one of the tunnels. They come across this large desiccated corpse of a goat. Most of them just keep on running because they want to try to catch up to Hallstein. But the Devil's Shadow character named Penny, played by my buddy Gasper, did stop to inspect it, where he found these large bite marks that injected poison into this poor goat, and necrotized all of its body eventually. There's also webbing all through the tunnels that increases as they get closer and closer. They started to realize pretty quickly that they were dealing with some kind of large spider here. And I didn't really kind of keep that mystery from them for too long. Eventually they find themselves in the tunnels that make up the lair of a phase spider. A phase spider is kind of more something from Dungeons and Dragons, but I use the animal rules in the Draw Steel monster book to kind of create a phase spider a phase spider of my own that worked with this rule set. So I describe as the party tracks down the cries from help, they're cut off by this large spider mother that looks over an escarpment down at them, ready to pounce. She's also joined and accompanied by a couple of spiders the size of hounds that I statted as minions, and then a swarm of tiny little spiders comes up from behind them to attack as well. And at that point, it was time to draw steel. Lavender, the Woad Elf Fury, played by Ty, turned around and decided to take on the swarm herself, which she did pretty effectively. She beat it back. She actually kind of grappled it, which I described as more she was just kind of like pushing it back as she walked the swarm away from the group, which was pretty cool. Dara, the Devil Summoner, played by Rob, started to summon her demonic minions, which immediately started to occupy the battlefield and fill up the tiny space of tunnels that they were in. But it was the new character, Norma, the high elf troubadour, who dealt the first crushing blow. She reveals as she takes a lightning leap towards the spider mother and strikes at her with a magical weapon, actually, a blade of quintessence. This was something that Zaul was able to kind of build into his character when he took a complication, a cursed weapon, which is going to actually tie into the narrative of this campaign pretty significantly. Stay tuned. The group dealt with the large hound spiders, the minions, and the swarm pretty easily, which caused the phase mother to kind of retreat and flee further and deeper down the tunnels into the heart of her lair. All the while the group gives chase, they can hear the shouts and the screams for help from Hal coming from deeper within. This was our first combat, and we're learning this game. We've played this game before, but we're still kind of learning it, and took quite a bit of time. And not only that, on Rob's turn with Dara, the game codex kind of broke. Because he's playing a summoner, we knew that specific class isn't fully kind of implemented, and we may encounter some bugs in the system. But yeah, when he tried to summon some of his creatures, we ran into a lot of issues. Things were being deleted from the map. His character at some point got deleted from the map and we didn't know how to recover it. And we took so much time trying to kind of troubleshoot the issue that honestly kind of ate up the last hour of our session. And so we had to kind of end it early in the middle of that chase, unfortunately. When that session ended, I came away really discouraged in terms of using the codex. I felt like maybe I had made the wrong decision, kind of persuading everybody from our tried and true owlbear rodeo to coming on to try to benefit from all the bells and whistles that are on the codex. With our limited playtime, I really want to make the most of our sessions. So the fact that we kind of lost an hour in that second session was really discouraging. But you know what? I think what we ended up doing at the end of that was talking about like, well, what do we think? Do we want to keep going with this? Do we want to try this? And the players all told me they really liked the codex. I mean, aside from the issue that we encountered on Rob's last turn, everything else was working really great. And I think they were really impressed with a lot of the features the codex did have. And so they were interested in giving it another try. So was I. We had already spent our money on it. And so we decided to keep trying it for the next session. So we picked up our third session in the middle of this combat as the party was chasing the spider mother to the heart of her lair. Nave was able to kind of teleport into the heart of her lair. Describe a cavern that's dominated by a large dark pit, who knows how deep it goes, and kind of hovering over this pit or tied over this pit is a large web created by the spider mother. And in the center of that web is where Hallstein, now kind of no longer crying for help, really kind of seizing, has been trapped. Nave decides to deal with the spider mother first before helping Hallstein. He fires off some kinetic blast with his elementalist powers, this played by my buddy Jesus, that connect well and do quite a bit of damage to the spider. But it's Dara who finishes off the spider mother with her explosive parade. Once again, with the summoner, we had quite a bit of issues in trying to make that explosive parade signature trait, signature ability, or heroic ability, I should say, work. But we ended up just kind of making it work manually. Take a bit of time in the codex, but we worked through it much faster than the issues we ran into in the session previous. With the spider mother defeated, the group turned to the more urgent matter of helping Hall. Hall is seizing, he's poisoned. Penny uses her telekinetic grasp to kind of pull him from the webbing that's laying over the pit and down to kind of the safety of the ground where they're all standing. I describe how pale he is as it seems the spider mother has injected her venom, her poison, into the side of one of his thighs. And upon closer inspection, they realize that it's very quickly necrotizing his flesh. Lavender decides to try to help and treat this. I asked Ty to make an intuition test from which he applied his healing skills, I believe. This was not going to be an easy test. I believe I made it a hard test, and unfortunately, Lavender rolled a tier 1 result. So I describe as Lavender tries to kind of apply some kind of first aid to kind of help mitigate the spread of the poison, but she's too late, and this venom is much too powerful, and she doesn't have the resources available to really treat her. And so there's really only one option, and Lav takes it. She amputates Hall's left leg, saving him from death, after which Nave quickly cauterizes it, and Hallstein I describe as just passing out. While this first aid scene unfolds, Penny, the Devil's Shadow played by Gasper, is actually kind of more walking around the lair looking for anything interesting, and I describe as this kind of mound of discarded items actually catches her eye. She finds a pair of black ash darts underneath a pile of discarded weapons and human remains. Being a shadow, Penny knows exactly what this is immediately, and Gasper was really excited. In fact, he immediately started thinking about how can I use these to try and craft more of them. If you don't know what black ash darts are, in a nutshell, they synergize really well with the shadow class who can kind of teleport around the battlefield. By throwing these black ash darts at enemies, you can damage them, but also teleport them to other parts of the battlefield. With the spiders defeated and Hal mostly saved, the group starts to focus on finding a way out of here. They journey for hours through large tunnels and caverns. Describe how kind of serene actually a lot of these caverns are. They mostly come across more mundane critters like bats and rats and amphibians. There's a stream of water that they decide to follow and go upstream to see if maybe there's an opening through this stream of water leading out of these caves. One thing I forgot to mention is that during the fight earlier, I described it to both Norma, who has the magical blade of quintessence, and also Dara, who has the mask of many faces, which also came from a complication I think that Rob chose for her character. how the magic from those items, they notice intermittently, briefly kind of blinks out, like it's sapped for a second before it kind of sputters back to kind of magical energy. Both Rob and Zaul are kind of curious and confused by this, but it's not something that can kind of easily be answered in the immediate or in this session. That's also kind of part of a larger thing that's happening. Stay tuned for that. After traveling for several hours, the group eventually comes into this massive cavern that has this large waterfall that they are kind of at the base of. It's spilling into this large lake that is pouring into various streams and rivulets, one of which they followed to get here. And I describe how this is really kind of the major way of getting out. They are faced with this slick, sheer, huge cliff face that they need to climb. Nave uses his teleportation abilities to kind of get up partially. He still had to make a test. I asked him, but he takes a rope with him to try and tie at the top and throw down in the hopes that it'll help the rest of them who don't have some of the abilities that he has in terms of climbing up. Extremely well at this. I think if I recall, he got a tier 3 result. And so he gets up there relatively easily, throws the rope down, and then the rest of the group has to climb up. The rest do a bit of a group might test to climb. Messed up the rules on this a little bit. I did allow Dara, played by Rob, to kind of help with the group test by helping kind of strategize and come up with the logistics for how to most efficiently get up the cliff face. I only found out later, I think, in the rules that if you give the players a group test, they can't also do a help test to make the test easier. But I didn't think it was a big deal, and narratively, it kind of made sense. With the edge that the group gained from Nave throwing down the rope, I then had to make the group might test, which they mostly all succeeded at without much consequence, except for the shadow Penny, played by Gasper. Might isn't really Penny's thing, and Gasper ended up rolling a tier 1 result for that. And so for the consequence, what I ended up doing is not limiting the fact that Penny got to the top. She did get to the top, but not without exerting a lot of effort. This meant that she spent a recovery to get up there. She lost the recovery, really. I thought this was a really good way to kind of provide a meaningful and impactful consequence to the encounter without creating just this stop where there's no way to proceed because she wasn't able to climb. The group then took a bit of a rest at the top, more of a narrative rest, not like mechanical rest. Rest works differently in this game than it does in D&D. I asked the group, I prompted them, do we want to kind of role play an opportunity here for you guys to rest and role play amongst each other and figure out what you want to do next? And they did. And so they did a bit of that. That's something that I do pretty regularly in our games, trying to kind of facilitate those moments so that we're not just moving from encounter to the encounter without also kind of coming back to the story and thinking about how the things that the characters in this world are experiencing is affecting them. When the group gets going again, Lav leads them again down the tunnel on the way out of here, and she comes upon a fork in these tunnels. She investigates both. She realizes that the tunnel to the west will lead them out of the mountains, but out towards the Ghost Woad, while a tunnel out towards the east will lead them out on the side closest to the town of Estelnik. And so the group kind of decides or talks about what to do next, and they pretty unanimously decide that they want to go to the town of Estelnik. They're extremely interested in exploring the Ghost Woad because of all the dangers, and from a gameplay perspective, I think they think that sounds a lot more fun. But narratively, they felt it made much more sense for them to go to Estelnik first. And from a roleplay sense, Rob playing Dara and Jesus playing Nave both thought that they would be much more interested in kind of seeing if there's any kind of promise of a reward for returning Hell mostly safely back to his family. With their decision made, they eventually emerge out an eastern cave on the eastern side of the mountain range called the Worm Spine. And they're bathed in the sunlight of early morning. It seems like they've been traveling throughout the night since their initial escape. And so they find before them a kind of serene wilderness of woodlands extending almost as far as the eye can see. Nave and Hell, who are the humans kind of more local or native to this region of Roll, know that from the mountain range they're probably a couple days away from the town of Estelnik, but they need to find a road to follow and make their way there without getting lost. I narrated for the group how they traveled on foot for the next 2 days across an expanse called the Vale, an expanse of woodlands made of pine trees and lavender flowers and all kinds of more mundane woodland creatures. Nothing really happens. It's mostly uneventful. Lav, Ty, playing Lav, mentions that he wanted to at some point kind of fashion a makeshift crutch using a large enough branch that he could find for Hal to be able to kind of navigate a bit more independently, which I said that he's able to do that pretty easily and find that here in this wilderness. And so Hal starts kind of following them a bit more slower. Hal is relieved, I think, to be saved, but his demeanor is still pretty muted. He's been through quite an ordeal, maybe more so than some of the player characters. And Seuss, playing Knave, also mentioned to me that periodically he would like to be scouting up ahead from the group, looking for any potential threats or dangers. And so midway through the second day, I had him make an intuition test, and he was able to apply his alert skill, which he rolled a tier 3 result on and came upon something. They've been kind of traveling adjacent to the road, not on the road itself. And so as Knave scouts ahead, I describe how Knave kind of creeps up through the pine trees and hears a couple of voices barking up on the road. "Hurry up, let's hang them up and get this over with. The commander's already fuming that those others escaped, and I won't have him breathing down my neck for taking too long to resupply the castle." This is the voice that Knave hears and sees 4 war dogs on the road being commanded by one particularly large war dog with multiple arms coming out of his torso. Next to the wagon on the road is a 5th creature, not a war dog, but a bugbear, this tall, furry humanoid, a mix of bear and ape-like features. The common people of role like Knave, they have many stories, scary stories of people like bugbears coming from the woad and eating other people, and they are, from the commoner's perspective, monsters. The war dogs have 4 human prisoners tied up that they're currently marching up a wooden platform on the side of the road. The war dogs tie nooses around their necks and begin to pull them up the gallows as the human prisoners begin to struggle and grasp for air, for life. Knave quickly jumps into action, firing off a kinetic energy burst at the first war dog he sees. And at that point, we had been playing for 3 hours, and so we drew steel. We started the first turn in combat. Knave went, and then that's where we ended the session for the night. The players were really excited and chomping at the bit to fight some war dogs in the next session. After the session, some of the players were kind of wondering if they can even take war dogs. They're not really sure. From their perspective, from a game perspective, they're wondering, like, what is the power level of war dogs? Are they much more powerful than us as player characters? And I did just kind of was very transparent with them. I told them, no, these war dogs are at about generally the same power level, if you will, as you all. And so you guys have the capacity to defeat them. And so at that point, they were much more reassured and kind of looking forward to the fight. Okay, so we did play one more session this past Tuesday, but this video is getting long enough, and so I think we're gonna stop the video or stop the campaign diary here and then talk about what happened in the next session in the next video. All in all, I think the third session that I've described went a lot better than that second session, especially when it comes to using the codex. When we wrapped up the combat with the spider, I think things went generally a lot smoother. We still ran into some issues. Rob in particular, I think, with the summoner had quite a bit of issues, but it didn't interrupt the flow of the game as much as it had in that second session. That's it for this campaign diary, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I made some tweaks to the audio setup, so I'm hoping that the audio is much better because I did receive some feedback that it was a bit hard to hear in previous videos, and so I'm hoping this is a lot better. Hope you liked the video, and I'm hoping you won't have to wait as long before the next campaign diary is out. Anyway, thanks for watching.